Now I just want to quickly elaborate on this inflation thing, because it's something that, when it's discussed, it's talked about as if it's like this kind of mystery. Prices are going up and we don't really know why. It's some kind of secret fairy that comes in and increases the prices, and politicians always act like they're no one really knows why this is happening. It's definitely not their fault. Now, let me just be clear. Inflation is a policy. They know why prices are going up. And if they don't know, they shouldn't be where they are. Because it's this simple. Now, what you have here is a rewrite of the equation of exchange. The equation of exchange is a formula that was first proposed by a British economist named Irving Fisher. And it's been used in various forms by various economists, including Keynes, actually. What this shows is that if prices go up, it can either be because money supply goes up, or because velocity of money goes up. Now, velocity of money is what I referred to before as if the activity in the economy increases, money has to work faster to be part of all the trades. That's what the velocity of money measures. So it just measures how many trades the same coin have been used in a given period of time. And so the velocity of money kind of works together with the money supply to create the total theoretical money supply. Or it can be because the overall general activity in the economy goes down. This sounds a bit counterintuitive what you've usually heard. But what's meant here is that the basic form to think about inflation is to think about number of products, amount of money divided by number of products. So if you take the total supply of money and divide it by number of products that are traded, the average number you should get is the average price. And so there is nothing else to the matter of inflation than this. If prices go up, it can only be because of one of these three reasons. Now, the US experienced massive price increases. And again, politicians wanted to do something about it. And the guy who was finally in the hot stool, a lot of American presidents, including Jimmy Carter, was in the hot stool. But Nixon certainly was as well, because he proposed again what I showed the European politicians also proposed with the gas prices. He started to actually not just propose it, but implement a lot of price freezes across a lot of different product ranges. One of them obviously was oil. Now, because oil was not allowed to increase in prices, the oil suppliers could not. The price mechanism was stalled. Oil could not be supplied to where it was most needed because suppliers couldn't make more money doing it, so it didn't make sense for them. In the winter in the US, a lot of oil is usually directed from the south to the north because they needed oil to heat their homes. That was also not feasible anymore. They also made a lot of price freezes on farm products. And that meant that farmers had to kill the chickens because they couldn't sell them for more than it would cost them to keep them alive. And very, very slowly, the entire value chain started to break down because they destroyed the price mechanism. In the end, Ronald Reagan won the election, and his central bank governor, Paul Volcker, finally went in and did the only thing you can do to stop inflation. Again, reference to the equation I showed you before. He stopped the printing press and he increased interest rates. Because when you increase interest rates, people don't borrow as much, and when they don't borrow as much, the banking system don't create any more money. Actually, they in theory take money out of the system, suck money out of the system. And so that's what happened. Inflation stopped. America obviously went through a very, very quick and abrupt crisis because this stalled a lot of activity. And since then, in the Western world, we've kind of been caught in this perpetual interest rate pattern where we constantly have to lower interest rates to ward off some type of recession. The two most well-known has been the dot-com bubble in 2000 or 99, whatever people want to refer to. That dot-com bubble had a lot of things going for it. It started in Southeast Asia in 1997. Interest rates were very low at the time, relatively again, and there was a lot of capital that wanted a place to stay. So there was a lot of capital that traveled around the world in order to, of course, get the highest return. And it ended in Southeast Asia. They overbought themselves. Thailand overbought themselves, and the problem for them was that the baht was tied to the US dollar. A lot of speculators saw this as a great opportunity to short the baht, and the Thailand economy collapsed and took the rest of the tiger economies with them. The remaining capital flushed back into the US, first to Russia, then back into the US, and into these .com companies. Which everybody forgot to check whether they actually made money, or they didn't. And so we had the .com crash when investors started to pull their money out. Again, spurred by an increase in interest rates from the central bank. Interest rates were lowered to a level where all of a sudden people went crazy in the housing market, and we had the housing crisis and the financial crash of 2008. In 2018, the US tried to say enough is enough. They tried to go through a deleveraging with increasing interest rates, but the market quickly crashed. And continuously they just have to lower rates to keep this system going. And so we've kind of entered this age of the extremes, where where stocks continuously keep rising in correspondence with the monetary supply. I mean, the .com bubble and the financial crisis that you see here were pretty significant back then, but in terms of where stocks are today, they're just small little birds in this whole thing. So it's kind of this very, very unsustainable situation. And the problem is, oh, beautiful graph I made there. The problem with that is that the market doesn't function properly. The market is not able to flush out the bad companies, the companies that don't generate enough value. Now the problem with that is, as I said, you don't get to redistribute funds to the most productive endeavors. And what you see is a slow decline in productivity level. And this is productivity growth. So this doesn't mean the economy is shrinking. It just means that productivity growth is slowly declining. And in some cases lately, we've seen it be quite negative. Obviously, there are some external factors like COVID and stuff like that are part of that. But the current stagflationary environment that we might be in, we might not fully be in, is not because of wars in Ukraine or other things. It's because we don't have a market that is functioning properly. We don't have a market where central banks are allowed to function properly. And that's why we've become so focused on consumption growth. When we talk about growth, we don't talk about real growth. We don't talk about productivity anymore. We don't talk about innovation. Well, you guys do, because you work here and you are in the innovative industry. But in general, when growth is talked about in the media, it's about how much more we consume. Well, there's not much growth to consumption if it's all based on credit, because that growth disappears the moment we have to pay the credit back. If you want to borrow money, you do it with something that can generate a return that is higher than the interest you're paying on it. Then you can generate real growth. Okay, so the slide before is a slide that, just stay there. Oh, just one more. Yeah, just stay there. The slide before is a slide that apparently doesn't work, but it shows the wealth distribution in US. And what it basically shows is the bottom 50% are not really part of the wealth. And that is because we are printing too much money. Because when you print money, you benefit asset holders. People that have assets, their wealth increases, whereas people that have salaries, their wealth declines relatively to the rest of the population. That's why we have inequality. It's not because of a capitalist system that doesn't work. It's because we're meddling with that system, and the unintended consequences creates this massive inequality that we have.